So I'm going to be talking about boundaries today and how you can learn to know what your boundaries are, to set and communicate your boundaries better, and how this is going to help you in all areas of your life. So I'm really excited to get started. This is a topic that I have really been learning a lot more about over this past year, and I've become very passionate about it because I've seen just like how much it's changed me and my life and how I feel about myself. And so I'm really excited to share these tips with you guys. So to start out, I wanted to share my story and just my experience with boundaries, because up until, I would say honestly, up until 2019 or maybe even 2020, I was absolutely terrible with boundaries. I am definitely a self-proclaimed people pleaser. I think that I'm definitely an empath. I'm someone who really cares and feels and understands other people's emotions and what other people want and what other people need, or at least what I think they want and what I think they need. So I'm always very in tune with, and I always care very deeply about how other people feel. So for me, setting boundaries, that has made it really difficult because I've always viewed boundaries, I think subconsciously, I've viewed boundaries as this negative thing, as this thing that's going to make other people upset, inconvenience other people, make other people not like me. And so I just kind of avoided setting boundaries for a long time. Now, the other part of my story, which many of you might already know, is that I am a sexual assault survivor. So when I was in college, I was sexually assaulted. I definitely think that my experience with sexual assault played a huge role in me becoming not so good at setting boundaries. I put a lot of blame on myself. And I think that I also felt very frustrated because I felt like, well, I tried to communicate my boundaries and that person didn't listen. So maybe there's no point in even communicating boundaries. You know, if someone isn't going to listen to me when it really counts, when it really matters, and they're going to violate me and cross my boundaries so much like they did, then maybe I don't need to, try to set boundaries, because it doesn't matter. It's not going to work. I'm just not good at boundaries. I'm not good at communicating boundaries. I'm, just all of this negative self-talk, and just kind of, I honestly feel like I kind of just gave up on setting boundaries. Again, I think it was a subconscious thing. I don't remember literally thinking I don't need to set boundaries anymore because the boundaries don't work. But I think that was something that I thought, at least in my head, because I had set that boundary of I don't want to have sex, and then and then multiple people crossed that boundary. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I just wanted to share kind of my story and my past experience with how difficult it was for me to set boundaries, and how I think some of that does stem from some of my personality traits, like being a people pleaser and caring very deeply about other people's feelings and desires and wants. And then I think some of that also came from my sexual assault. So with that being said, I do feel like now I'm in a place where I am much better at setting boundaries. I'm much more clear about what my boundaries are in any given situation or with any given relationship. And I feel like I just have gained all this clarity around it. So that's what I'm wanting to share with you today, is how you can gain more clarity and more empowerment around boundaries. Because really, when you get down to it, boundaries is all about empowerment. It's all about power, and it's something that really will positively impact your life and your relationships. Boundary to me means any line that you are not willing to cross, whether it's something small or something big. So a boundary can be anything from maybe your friend asks you to hang out and you are really tired that day and you don't feel like going. So your boundary could be, I am not up for hanging out with you today, but let's hang out a different day. That's a boundary that I set a lot, because in the past, and that might seem, to a lot of you, that might seem like a really little thing, or that might be something that comes really easily and naturally to you. But for me, as I said earlier, I'm a people pleaser. 3 years ago, I would have just, even if I was tired, even if I had other things going on, I would have tried to make it work. I would never say no to people, ever. So for me, even a small boundary, like saying, hey, I actually can't make today work, but let's find a different day that works for us. That is huge for me. Another boundary could be, you know, if you are in a relationship and you are living together, maybe you could have a boundary around like sharing house, you know, sharing chores around the house, or, you know, maybe you have a boundary with like, we need to have date nights once a week or once a month, or, you know, I don't want us to be on our phones when we're in bed together. I want us to be able to talk to each other, you know. So there's like boundaries like that in relationships that I think, again, might seem like little things, but they will definitely add up. And the thing with boundaries is that if you constantly let someone else cross your boundaries, then you will start to feel resentment towards them, which is one of the ultimate like relationship killers, I feel like, is resentment. So yeah, so I think most of us probably know what boundaries are, but how do we know when someone has hit one of our boundaries? How do we know when someone is touching on a boundary or when we have a boundary? So I've recently learned of this really awesome trick that I think has been super helpful for me. And it basically is just that you need to focus on how you feel, both emotionally and also just like the actual physical feelings in your body that you experience when someone asks you for something or says something or does something that you know you don't really want to do, you want to say no to it, you're feeling upset, you're feeling uncomfortable. So the trick is to focus on how you are feeling, again, both emotionally. So are you feeling angry? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling scared? Are you feeling awkward or uncomfortable? You know, frustrated, whatever, what are you feeling? And then what is your body telling you? So for me, I'll give an example. Whenever someone asks me to do something that I know I don't want to do, I will immediately start feeling these different sensations in my body. So one of them is that my heart will start beating really fast. And for me, for me, a lot of these symptoms feel very similar to anxiety. So, but I think it's good to name the specific feelings instead of just saying the umbrella term of, I feel anxious, you know. So my heart starts pounding really fast. I start feeling warm, like kind of like some heat building in my face. And I feel like it's harder for me to breathe. So I feel like I either start breathing really quickly, or I'm like I realize that I'm holding my breath. And so those are some of the signs that I normally feel within myself when I know that someone has kind of touched on one of my boundaries. So right now, I want you guys to stop, pause this video, and think for a second about the last time that someone asked you for something, or think for a second about the last time that you either set a boundary with someone or that maybe you should have set a boundary, and think about how you felt in that moment, and like maybe journal it, write down the actual physical sensations you were feeling, and then write down some of the emotions you were feeling. So yeah, do that, pause the video, go do that. I think it's gonna be really helpful. It's been really helpful for me that once I've learned that, now in real life, when someone is doing something that bothers me or someone asks me to do something, these little alarm bells will pop up and I'll be like, oh, these are my, you know, my heart starts beating, I'm feeling anxious, I feel like I can't breathe very well. Oh, these are the warning signs that this is a boundary. I need to communicate my boundary right now. So that brings us to our next important part, which is, how do you communicate a boundary? Once you've realized what your boundaries are, how do you set the boundaries? How do you keep the boundaries firm? And how do you communicate them to someone in a loving way? One of the keys to communicating boundaries is focusing on your needs and your capacity. So with the example I gave earlier of if you're really tired one day, you're really tired one day and your friend asks if you want to hang out. Your capacity in that moment is, you don't have the capacity to spend time with someone. You're wanting to just stay home, watch some TV, have a chill night. So your capacity is, so focus on your capacity and then focus on your needs. Your needs would be that you just want to stay home, that you want to relax. Your capacity and your needs and your boundaries are very connected. And that's kind of a key to figuring out, beyond just what I said before of like how you feel, you also need to focus on what are my actual needs, wants, and desires, both in this moment and also within this relationship, right? So, and then how can I get those needs met? So with my example earlier of if you're in a romantic relationship and you're living together and maybe you're feeling a little bit disconnected from your partner. So, your needs might be something like wanting to spend more quality time together. So then you have to think about, okay, how do I get those needs met? So maybe it would be, like I said, setting having a date night once a week, or saying we're not going to be on our phones during a certain time, or you can figure out what works for you. But it's all connected to what are my needs, and then what's my capacity, and what can I do, or what boundaries can I set to make that happen for myself. Now, the other thing you need to think about when you are communicating a boundary to someone is we always want to try to do it in a loving way. So I know for myself, like I said earlier, I am a people pleaser. So I used to feel so nervous about hurting someone's feelings, about, them not liking me anymore, or about them not getting their needs met. But when you're only focusing on the other person, then really everyone loses, right? Because you're not being honest with them or with yourself about what you need. And if you're only focusing on letting their needs get met, then your needs don't get met, right? And so I think it's really important to communicate boundaries in a loving way, so that you feel like you're not, you're doing everything you can to present these boundaries in a way that's going to be kind to the other person, so you don't have to feel like you're hurting their feelings, at least not intentionally, right? We can't really control what other people feel. We can't control how the other person reacts. We can only control what we do and what we say. So I think the best way to communicate a boundary lovingly is to just focus on yourself, make I statements like I feel, and then talk about how you feel. So you never want to be blaming the other person. Again, with the example of, you're in a couple, and you never want to say like, you're always on your phone, or you never take me out on date nights, like, right? That's not gonna make the other person feel great. But you could communicate it by I feel, like, when we're both on our phones, when we're laying in bed together, I feel really disconnected from you. I don't feel like we're spending quality time together. So therefore, I would like for us to make it a rule that we try not to be on our phones or laying in bed together. If you say it like that, your partner is hopefully most likely not going to get defensive, because you're not saying you're doing something wrong. You're saying, us collectively as a couple is doing something that's not working for me, and it makes me feel, focusing on how you're feeling. Nobody can tell you that you don't feel the way that you feel, right? So yeah, those are some of my tips for communicating boundaries in a loving way. So now I wanted to touch on, why is it important to set boundaries in relationships? Now this could be for romantic relationships, friendships, your relationship with your family members, work. I think boundaries come up a lot with people and their careers and work. So any type of relationship in your life, I think that boundaries are super important. So applying those tips that I've told you about how to know when you have a boundary, how to communicate it in a nice way, I think those will really, really help you in all areas of your life. Like I said before, when you don't communicate your boundaries, when you are constantly putting other people's needs first, you start building up this resentment towards the other person, when really you're the one doing that to yourself, right? If you're not communicating your boundaries, the other person is not a mind reader. They don't know that that's a boundary if you don't tell them, right? So I think just focusing on what your needs are, on your capacity again, and then communicating your boundaries in a loving way will really help to build more intimate and fulfilling and happy relationships of all kinds in your life. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I'm really passionate about boundaries. I have so much to say. I could probably make more videos about this. So definitely let me know if you would like to see another video where I dive deeper into any of these topics or tricks and advice that I've covered in this video around boundaries. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I did want to say, for those of you that stuck around to the end, you're gonna hear a fun, exciting announcement, which is that I am going to be launching my very first one-on-one coaching program. So I am a relationship and sex coach, and I'm going to be launching a program specifically for women who are sexual assault survivors, and we'll be working on boundaries like I talked about in this video, and so many other things. And I would love for you to get in touch with me if you're interested in hearing more about this coaching program, and I would love to chat with you and see if it might be a good fit for you. So yeah, thank you guys so much.